The American dream, the idea that if you work hard, save smart, and stay out of trouble, you'll make it, is dead, gone, replaced by a system that bleeds you dry while telling you it's your fault you're drowning. Homeownership, the median U.S. home now costs $420,800, and with interest rates over 7%, you need at least $150,000 a year to even compete. Rent, average one-bedrooms are now over $1,168 a month, and still rising. Groceries, inflation has jacked food prices by 25% since 2020, with basics like orange juice topping $10 a gallon. Healthcare, over 100 million Americans are in medical debt, and most of them have insurance. Jobs, you can work full-time and still need a side hustle just to afford eggs. We've reached the point where $100K a year feels broke, where 63% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, and a single missed payment can send your credit score into a freefall that blocks you from housing, jobs, and even car insurance. This is not just economic pressure, it's systemic suffocation, and it's happening fast. So if you're tired, broke, working harder than ever, and still falling behind, you're not crazy. You're just living in America after the dream died. Let's talk about what comes next. Rent is no longer rent, it's ransom for a roof. Let's not sugarcoat this. Paying rent in 2025 feels less like a monthly housing expense and more like being extorted to not be homeless. The average one-bedroom apartment in America now costs $1,668 a month, up 29% from just 5 years ago. And that's average. In major cities like Los Angeles, New York, or Miami, we're talking $2,400 to $3,200 for something the size of a shoebox. But here's the part no one talks about. Rents are rising fastest in secondary markets like Tampa, Colorado Springs, and Cincinnati, places people fled to during COVID thinking they'd be cheaper. Landlords are cashing in like never before. Corporate ownership of rental housing has exploded. BlackRock, Invitation Homes, and other Wall Street landlords now own over 28% of single-family rental homes in some metro areas. They use algorithms to fix prices, track your financial behavior, and deny leases based on predictive default risk. You're not renting from humans anymore. You're renting from machines that read your bank account. And when you ask how you're supposed to make it, the answer is always the same. Get a roommate, get a side hustle, or get lost. But why should we have to normalize sleeping on air mattresses at 30? Why is living alone now a luxury reserved for the elite? 1 in 4 renters spends over 50% of their income on housing, and eviction rates are up 48% since 2021. If you fall behind even once, the system is designed to toss you and your belongings to the curb. Welcome to America's new landlord economy, where shelter is no longer a right. It's a profit margin. $100K is the new $40K, and you're still broke. It used to be that 6 figures meant success, financial freedom, comfort. But in 2025, making $100,000 a year barely covers your basics, especially if you live in a metro area. After federal, state, and payroll taxes, you're down to about $68,000. Subtract $2,200 a month for rent, $600 a month for groceries. Yes, food inflation is that high. $1,000 a month for student loans, car payments, and gas. Add insurance, internet, utilities, and surprise medical bills. What are you left with? Less than $200 a month in disposable income. And God help you if you want a child. The USDA now says it costs $27,180 per year to raise a single child, not including college. That's why more millennials and Gen Z aren't having kids, not because they don't want to, but because they physically can't afford to. Financial experts still push this ancient advice. Save 20% of your income, invest in a Roth IRA, build a 3-6-month emergency fund. With what money exactly? The U.S. personal savings rate is down to 3.5%, one of the lowest levels since 2008. And people are loading up on debt just to survive. Credit card balances now exceed $1.13 trillion, with an average APR of 24.6%, the highest in U.S. history. So no, it's not just you. Inflation-adjusted wages have been flatlining for over 2 decades, while CEO pay has exploded by 1,460% since 1978. You're not bad with money. You're living in a rigged economy where $100K buys you what $40K used to, and everyone keeps gaslighting you into thinking you just need to budget better. Spoiler: it's not your avocado toast. It's a broken system. College is a scam, and everyone knows it now. Remember when a degree was your golden ticket? That's over. Today, going to college feels like signing a lifetime debt contract in exchange for a job you could have gotten with a high school diploma. Or worse, no job at all. In 2024, the average student graduates with $37,187 in federal loans. But that's just the tip. Add in private loans, accrued interest, and for-profit schools. And it's not uncommon to see totals north of $100K. And the payoff? Entry-level salaries that haven't budged in years, averaging $55,000, while the cost of living has exploded. 1 in 5 college grads is working in a job that doesn't even require a degree. And more than half of Gen Z workers say their college education was not worth the cost. Worse, we sold an entire generation on the idea that if you didn't go to college, you were destined to fail. But trades like plumbing, electrical, HVAC, and welding are now paying $80K, $120Ks with no degree, and demand is surging. Meanwhile, liberal arts grads are fighting for unpaid internships and living with their parents at 28. Even the Ivy League isn't safe anymore. Degrees from Harvard or Columbia are increasingly being outpaced in ROI by certifications from Google, AWS, and tech boot camps. And yet, colleges keep hiking tuition. Public university costs are up 179% since 2000, and private schools up 234%. Why? Because they know you'll borrow, and they get paid either way. Student debt is now a $1.77 trillion crisis. So yeah, the American dream told you college was the ladder. Turns out it was a trapdoor. Healthcare will bankrupt you before anything else does. Let's be real. In no other developed country is a broken arm the difference between keeping your apartment and living in your car. In the U.S., 2/3 of personal bankruptcies are tied to medical expenses. And no, that's not because people don't have insurance. It's because the insurance they do have is worthless. More than 100 million Americans are saddled with medical debt, and 43% of working-age adults are underinsured, meaning they pay premiums, deductibles, and co-pays so high that they can't actually afford to use their insurance. In 2025, the average employer-sponsored health plan costs $8,235 per year for an individual and $23,968 for a family. That's nearly double what it was in 2010. And if you're self-employed or freelance, expect to shell out $500 to $900 per month, per person, just for the privilege of not dying from a UTI. Meanwhile, pharmaceutical companies are charging $100 or $200 for a vial of insulin, which costs less than $10 to produce. A single ER visit can cost $3,000 to $7,000 without insurance, and even with insurance, surprise billing loopholes still rake in billions. And what do we get for all this money? Worse health outcomes. The U.S. ranks last among high-income countries in life expectancy, maternal mortality, and infant health. Think about that. We spend twice as much per capita on healthcare than any other nation, but we die younger and get sicker. The system isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do: extract wealth from sick people. So yes, in America, getting cancer might be survivable, but paying for it isn't. The middle class is vanishing, and it's not coming back. There was a time when being middle class meant something. You could own a home, send your kids to school, take a vacation every now and then, and retire with some dignity. That was the promise. But now, the middle class has been sliced, squeezed, and siphoned off to the point of extinction. According to Pew Research, the share of Americans in the middle-income tier has dropped from 61% in 1971 to just 50% in 2023, and that number keeps falling. What replaced it? A polarized economy where you're either hanging on for dear life or you're rich enough to not care. The cost of living is rising faster than wages in 80% of U.S. counties, and 63% of Americans now live paycheck to paycheck, including over half of those earning $100K plus. Meanwhile, asset ownership is completely lopsided. The top 10% of households now hold 70% of all wealth in America, while the bottom half owns just 2.5%. That's not a wealth gap. That's economic apartheid. The ladder of upward mobility is gone. Today, your zip code at birth is a stronger predictor of your future income than your education, work ethic, or talent. In other words, the game is rigged before you're even born. The middle-class dream was always a carrot on a stick, but now they've taken the stick, burned the carrot and told you to run faster. Your parents bought homes with one income. You need 3 jobs and a crypto side hustle just to afford rent. This isn't a cycle. It's a collapse in slow motion. Groceries are a luxury now. The fridge is empty, but the bill is full. There's no way to spin this. Eating in America is starting to feel like a luxury. The average grocery bill for a family of 4 has jumped to $140 per month, according to the USDA's moderate cost food plan. That's nearly $14,000 a year, just to feed your family. And that's without eating organic, gluten-free, keto, or any of the wellness nonsense influencers love to pitch. Eggs that used to be $1.50 are now $4. Ground beef is up 28% since 2021. Bread, 19%. Orange juice just hit a record $10.29 per gallon because of climate-induced crop failures in Florida and Brazil. And God help you if you're trying to eat healthy. A pound of organic chicken breasts, nearly $9 in most urban areas. But here's the kicker. It's not just inflation, it's consolidation. Just 4 companies control 80% of the meat industry, meaning they set the price, they rig the supply, and you just pay. Shrinkflation is rampant too. Everything is smaller now. Cereal boxes, chip bags, peanut butter jars, all downsized while prices stayed the same or even went up. You're literally paying more for less. Even dollar stores have become a joke. Dollar Tree now charges up to $7 for household staples, and SNAP benefits, they were slashed in 2023 after emergency COVID allotments ended. Millions of low-income families saw food assistance drop by $250 a month overnight. People are skipping meals. People are stealing formula. Food banks are overwhelmed, and nobody in power is blinking. Because in the new America, hunger is no longer a crisis. It's just part of the business model. The 40-hour work week is dead. You now need 2 jobs just to tread water. Let's be blunt. Working full-time no longer means you can survive. The 40-hour work week, once the standard for achieving balance, stability, and dignity, has become a relic of the past. In 2025, over 8.5 million Americans are working 2 or more jobs, a number that surged 19% in just the last year. Not because they want extra cash for luxuries, but because they can't afford to live off one income anymore. And here's the kicker. Many of those are college-educated full-time workers, nurses pulling gig shifts at night, teachers driving for DoorDash after school, engineers tutoring online just to pay rent. Wages simply haven't kept pace. Adjusted for inflation, the median American wage has only risen 2.2% since 2000, while housing, healthcare, and food costs have risen over 50% in the same time frame. But let's go deeper. Employers are exploiting the gig economy like never before. Uber, Instacart, Amazon Flex, they're all built on the promise of flexibility, when really what they've done is strip away every benefit, shift risk onto workers, and normalize a world where you're always on the clock but never getting ahead. And if you're salaried, congrats, you're working 49.6 hours per week on average according to Gallup, and likely expected to go the extra mile for 0 extra pay. The work-life balance? That's a lie they sell you in HR onboarding slides. Burnout has become an epidemic, and mental health professionals now warn that chronic overwork is leading to record levels of anxiety, depression, and suicide. We're not just tired, we're exhausted. And no amount of side hustles will change the fact that one job should be enough. Credit scores are modern-day shackles, and the algorithm owns you. You don't control your future anymore, your credit score does. That 3-digit number, generated by shadowy privately owned companies like Equifax and TransUnion, now decides everything. Whether you get an apartment, a car, a job, or even the ability to turn your lights back on. And most people have no idea how these scores are calculated. Miss one payment during a layoff or medical emergency, and your score tanks. Inquiries, penalized. Utilization, penalized. Age of accounts, penalized. It's a game rigged against the poor and unstable, and it's becoming more punitive by the year. Over 43% of Americans now have subprime credit, meaning they're locked out of traditional banking, hit with insane interest rates, or outright rejected from housing. Landlords now run credit checks just to apply for a lease, and some employers are screening candidates by FICO score. That's not finance. That's digital caste. And if you try to fight back, good luck. The CFPB receives over 70,000 credit reporting complaints per month, many involving errors that cost people jobs and homes. Even worse, AI-powered risk models are now being used in lending, which means your financial life is increasingly decided by black box algorithms you'll never see, understand, or appeal. Meanwhile, banks are offering buy now, pay later credit traps with 30% plus APR, preying on young people who are already underwater. You can be responsible, hardworking, even frugal, but if your credit file says otherwise, you're toast. The American dream isn't denied in person anymore. It's denied silently by a machine. Homeownership was the dream. Now it's a fantasy for the 1%. This was supposed to be it. The finish line. The white picket fence, the mortgage, the starter home you fix up and eventually pass down. Homeownership was the crown jewel of the American dream. But in 2025, it's basically a rich man's sport. Let's start with the facts. The median home price in the U.S. is now $420,800. That's up 35% since the pandemic, but that's just the sticker price. Mortgage rates? A brutal 7.4% average on a 30-year fixed, double what they were in 2021. That means to afford the median home, you now need a household income of $120,000, $150,000, and a down payment of $84,000 to avoid PMI. Know how many millennials and Gen Zs have that? Less than 7%. Most Americans can't even scrape together $500 in emergency savings, let alone 84Ks. But it gets worse. Wall Street is now your landlord. Private equity firms, REITs, hedge funds, they've swooped in like vultures, buying up entire zip codes with cash offers 50% over asking, pricing out actual families, and turning homes into rentals. In places like Atlanta, Phoenix, and Charlotte, 1 in 5 homes is now owned by an institutional investor. These firms don't care about neighborhoods, they care about yield. They jack up rent, gut maintenance, and force people into bidding wars just to renew a lease. And new construction isn't helping. Developers are prioritizing high-end townhomes and luxury builds because that's where the profit is. Affordable starter homes? Basically extinct. Only 7% of new builds in 2024 were priced under $300,000, down from 40% in 2010. And guess who's hoarding what's left? Boomers. They're not moving, not downsizing, and sitting on 70% of the nation's housing wealth, often in paid-off homes. Gen Z and millennials? They're stuck renting forever, or moving back home, or fleeing to rural towns where there's no work, just to find something under $1,200 a month, and even there, prices are rising. So yeah, the American dream used to be, work hard, save up, buy a home. Now, the new dream is just not going broke. So what now? You've seen the numbers, you've lived the reality. It's not just hard out here, it's mathematically impossible for most Americans to catch up, let alone get ahead. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed, to keep you hustling, struggling, and too tired to fight back. But let me be crystal clear. You're not the failure. You're not broke because you're lazy. You're not falling behind because you made bad choices. You're stuck because the economy was redesigned to lock you out. And while the dream may be dead, what comes next is up to us. Some will keep pretending it's all fine. Some will try to play the game a little harder. But more and more of us, we're waking up. We're choosing to opt out of the fantasy, question everything we were taught, and start building something that actually works for us. Because if the American dream is no longer for the people, then maybe it's time we stop chasing it and start creating something better. Let them keep their dream. We're writing our own ending.